And welcome back for this week's episode of the Dragon Heads podcast. I'm your master of ceremonies, Thorn Rain. With me tonight, just one of the co-hosts. We've got Dragon Joe. Kyle had some things going on, so he had to step out for tonight. So it's just me and Dragon Joe tonight. How you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. Happy to be here. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that we didn't get to play D&D this past Sunday, so it's like I still like I'm itching for some D&D right now.
Yep, I understand that 100%. Uh, lot of things going on. It's the summer. Things come up. We've had some issues these last couple of weeks getting to play some games. Looking forward to getting back into it, but hopefully everybody's doing good and everything's okay right now. But let's get this show on the road. We've got one bit of news here. Um, Surfing the old D&D Reddit, I came across production has wrapped for the new D&D movie. I didn't even know that they were filming a new D&D movie. It's got Chris Pine, it's got Michelle Rodriguez. Um, Sounding like it could be pretty interesting. They're really looking to push it, and this isn't the only thing that was in the article. I guess Paramount is also doing a TV show based inside of the D&D universe, but there isn't a whole lot of information about that I could find.
I'll be 100% honest. I'm more interested in a TV show because like the D&D in general is a long form story.
Mm-hmm.
Like you look at Critical Role, you look at any of the they talk about this is a long form story where you're telling a story that has a lot of twists and turns, a lot of sidetracks, a lot of um a lot of stuff going on. And it's really hard to boil that down to a 2 hour, 2.5 hour, 3 hour movie. And that's been one of the problems that they've had every time they try to make a D&D movie. It becomes, I don't want to say cliche, but it becomes very, oh, well, we're going to do this and we're going to have a dragon attack and then we're going to have the party come together and then they're going to fight the dragon
Yep.
and beat the overlord. And it always seems very cliche. It always seems very like very predictable. And there'll be usually like one little twist that you're like, okay, that was kind of cool. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that this movie isn't the same. It looks like they're actually getting good actors.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like Chris Pine as Captain Kirk in the Star Trek movies. Um, and Michelle Rodriguez. I will be the first to admit I'm not a huge fan of the Fast and Furious franchise, but I still respect it for what it is because, and I think I heard a Bria Iyengar say this on one of the episodes of EXU where it, they're not worried about real world physics; they're worried about Hollywood physics.
Yep.
And if you're into that sort of stuff, great. It's like I like watching cool cars, but it got to the point where it was a little over the top for me. But that said, she is one of the staples to that series, and she's a great actress with that with that in mind. And she's one of the people that has helped that franchise stay alive. Um, I'm cautiously optimistic,
Yep.
but we'll have to wait and see.
Yep.
Again,
It's
I
like
the new. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it had like a couple dates in there, but it's not looking like anything's gonna be concrete until like early 2023. So we still got a while before we get the movie or the TV show, but it's one of those things like you said, cautiously optimistic. Like I've seen the old D&D movies. They are cheesy. Like they're rough, and it was very
They
much somebody in Hollywood said, "Hey, we can try to capitalize on these stories because there's a bunch of people that like this stuff," and did not give any like regard to what the actual story should have been in those movies.
go so far as to say they capitalized on the name
Yep.
even more so than any of the story. It's just they're like Dungeons and Dragons. People are all over anything that says Dungeons and Dragons. So let's get that. And it's like every time they made it, they made it as a B-rate movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like no name actors, no name director. Like they were doing it super budgety, and it's not like they went out and found like a young Kevin Smith to do it, or someone of that caliber to try to lead a project like that. Instead, they're just like, we'll slapdash it, throw it together, use some duct tape, use some zip ties, it'll be fine, and it made them enough money that they were happy.
Yep. So hopefully this goes in a completely different direction, and we actually get a just fantasy epic delivered to us that hopefully launches a whole franchise of movies and TV shows that we can all enjoy and love.
Yeah, that would be great.
Only bit of news tonight, so we're gonna roll right down into our top five. We are talking Paladin magical items. We're gonna give our top five for each of these. So, Joe, why don't you start us off with your number five?
Well, I would first like to say that in the Discord, had Hunter request that, hey, we're looking to, we want to see some top fives of magical weapons of different, for magical items and stuff for different classes. So we're slowly starting, and it took us a little bit of getting there, but we're starting with the Paladin because that's the one he requested. Just join the Discord. You never know, we might do your top five. But my number five is the Winged Boots, and these are a huge magical item for the Paladin, especially because of the fact that they have they have heavy armor. They tend to have a big weapon, and it's usually a melee weapon, and it becomes one of those things where if they need to attack something like a dragon that's flying or a beholder that's flying, you have trouble getting to it. So the beauty of it is, okay, I have these winged boots. I can fly up there now and it's smack it, you know. And that's the beauty of the winged boots. It's one of those things that where like a ranger would use winged boots to get distance, they're looking to close distance with them. They're looking to get up close and personal with anything that is flying, anything that is trying to get away from them that way, and it can be really great. Now, with item allocation in the group, will the paladin always get the winged boots? Eh, but for reference, it's one of those things that it could be a great item for paladins. Um, Number four is for me is the Ring of Evasion, and the reason I picked the Ring of Evasion is because while you can build a dex-based paladin, usually you don't. So one of the big faults, I guess, of the paladin is that they are always going to see. It always seems like they're going to fail dexterity saving throws. If there's a fireball cast around a paladin, they're looking at it. Oh man, I'm taking full damage. Oh man, I'm taking full damage. With the Ring of Evasion, you're able to half that damage of whatever dex saving throw, and you're able to do that 3 times a day, and it just does a lot for you. And it's one of those things that it doesn't sound like it's insane, but that damage, when you're able to half that damage and have that damage like multiple times,
Oh yeah.
it can be a lifesaver, and it can be a lot of um just preventative damage or alternating damage, however you want to state that. Um, then number three is a little funny because I grouped these two together. The Flame Tongue and the Frost Brand, they do the same thing. It's just different types of damage. Um, the idea is that you want some sort of weapon that deals extra damage when you hit people. The Flame Tongue does extra fire damage. the frost tongue does extra ice damage. I conversely, they're the same to me unless you're like you're doing something like Descent to Avernus, where fire damage is pretty much nullified by everything or everyone's resistant to fire damage, then it matters.
Mhm.
But for the most part, it's like you're taking a idea of, well, do I want cold damage or do I want fire damage? And they're interchangeable to me unless you're in a situation where you need one or the other. But the idea is you're one of the guys that are going to make multiple attacks. You're the guy that is going to want to roll that extra damage every time you hit, and it's just the exact thing that you really need for that. Number two is a really rare item, but man, it is one of the coolest items that a paladin can have, and that's an animated shield. And the beauty of the animated shield is with a bonus action, you can basically make it float, and then you can go two-handed. So you can use that great sword, you can use that halberd, you can use that glaive, and it's one of those things that you get to keep the AC. It kind of has. I'm trying to think of a good example that have where they have like a shield floating and taking damage for you, but it does that, and because of that, it's one of those really awesome items that's just, oh wow, this is perfect, especially if you're a two-handed wielding paladin and you're like, well, I don't normally carry a shield. Well, suddenly you carry a shield and you're just like, bonus action, protect me,
Yep.
roar, and you're able to still two-hand. It's great. And then the last but not least is the belt of dwarven kind, and this item is really underrated by a lot of people because they're like, oh, it's just a +2 to your con, and you get some poison resistance, and you can grow a beard. But the thing is that improving your con it gives you more HP. It gives you more. It gives you advantage against poison saving throws, and it gives you all of the class features that would normally be with a dwarf. And the beauty of that is that unless you are a dwarf paladin, it really helps you. Like everything that it gives you is useful, unless you already know dwarvish, because you get to learn to read and write dwarvish. You get the +2 to con. You get the poison, the resistance to poison. Is it resistance to poison damage or is it advantage against poison saving throws? I can never remember.
You have resistance against poison damage, and you have advantage
Okay,
on saving throws against poison.
okay, so both of them even better. And it's like, and then you have the fun little RP of you have a chance to grow a beard every day, which I find funny, especially if you're a race that can't normally grow a beard like an elf or Goliath. Um, and the other funny thing is it doesn't specify gender. So if you are a female paladin with a belt of dwarven kind, you can still grow a beard. But it makes for interesting RP, and it makes for some fun shenanigans. And then on top of that, it's just a great magical item. And I'll be honest, for the paladin, for the barbarian, for the fighter, this is one of those like almost must-have sort of items. Like if you come across in your campaign, you're giving it to one of those three, beefcakes,
Yep.
and it is absolute my favorite item for this class. So what are your top five,
and
Thorn?
and looking at some of yours, I have similar in the idea of what they are, but different items altogether. So I'm starting off with my number 5, which I probably could put it at my number 1 because it's just that good, but I like some of the other stuff going along, is Sword of Sharpness. Sword of Sharpness, if you're attacking an object, it's automatic max damage. you're attacking a creature and you roll a 20, automatically 14 extra damage on top of your critical roll. And then you get to roll a d20 a second time. And if you happen to get that lucky double 20 roll, you're severing body parts off of your enemy. Like, one, how cool was that? But that extra 14 damage on critical hits that's a massive chunk of damage. But then you can also speak the command word, and you're carrying around a torch. So this is one of those ones where I felt if you want to just go high damage, yes, you got to get that crit. But when you get the crit, you're already looking at putting out a ton of damage. But then to throw on 14 more, and then potentially wound an enemy, like you cut off a hand. Well, now they either lose their weapon or they lose their shield if they're, a shield carrier. Could drastically change the way that the paladin fights against some of their enemies. So then my number 4, I took the Cloak of Displacement. Now, seems a little bit, underwhelming, but disadvantage rolls on every attack roll up until you're hit each round. So if you get hit in one round, your disadvantage to be attacked comes back the very next round. So they're constantly rolling disadvantage against you. This is one of those ways to help mitigate that damage coming in. If you're not necessarily carrying a shield, you can get around quite a bit of damage if they're not rolling against you. See. Yep, I think that was it on that one. And then my number 3, I've got the Defender. Kind of like the animated shield, kind of not, because this is a weapon that's got +3 bonus to attack and damage rolls. All right, that's cool. It's a lot of extra damage. But then the first time you attack with the sword on each of your turns, you can switch up that +3 to also benefit your AC. So you can do 1 to attack, 2 to AC, 2 to AC, 1 to attack, all 3 to AC. You can break it up however you want. And kind of, this is one of those ones where if you're carrying this sword and you have a shield, you can go up even higher with your AC if you're looking at needing the boost in AC for that fight. If you don't need the boost in AC, you drop it all into the damage and you just wreak havoc. Yep. I think that was it on that. And then my number 2. This was a big one when I was looking at it. The Amulet of the Devout. What this does is while you're wearing the holy symbol, you gain a bonus spell. You gain a bonus to spell attack rolls and saving DCs of your spells. That bonus is determined on the rarity. You can either get a 1, 2, or 3. That's good. That's nice. But kind of the big thing is you get an extra free channel divinity usage out of this. So you're now being able to use your channel divinity, because I believe channel divinity is only once per long rest. I can't remember. I'm just looking into working on paladins. Twice. So this bumps it up to 3 times. So you can use 2 of the mains and then 1 of the bonus actions, vice versa, however you want to do it. I think it would give a lot of versatility to the way the paladin is able to play with that extra channel divinity usage, and then having the extra spell attack and bonus to the saving throws isn't that bad. Now, this was my big mitigation item here, and that's the Mizium armor. I like this armor because it nullifies all critical hits. If you rolled a critical hit while you're wearing this armor, any critical hit against you becomes a normal hit, dropping out that extra damage. But then on top of that, it allows you to make a strength or constitution saving throw to take only half damage. Well, anytime that you have to take a strength or constitution saving throw, to take half damage on something, you instead take no damage at all. So it's just a ton of mitigation coming from this armor, and you can get it from chain shirt all the way up to plate. So depending on how you wanted to outfit your paladin, and really any character, I think that this is the armor that is by far my number one, because crits can do a ton of damage, and just taking that off of the table, it's gonna save a lot of healing and stress on your party if you can mitigate that out of the fight.
I totally agree with you. And the only thing that I'm gonna nitpick your list a
Hey,
little
go
bit.
ahead.
The only thing I'm gonna nitpick is whenever I talked about these, I tried to stay away from legendary weapons, and the defender is definitely a legendary weapon.
Oh,
So
I
that's
didn't
my only
even
nitpick
notice
with
the
your list.
legendary. Oh, yes,
Yeah,
it is. We did talk about no legendaries. I fumbled on that one.
because and for our viewers, the idea behind our top 5 list for items is we don't want to have any consumables. We don't want to have any legendary weapons, because that kind of makes, if you find a legendary weapon, that should be like almost a quest in and of itself. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you are searching for the Sunblade, or you're searching for the Defender, or the whatever legendary item that there's only one of in the world, that should be like, you have to track it down, you have to find out rumors and myths and legends about it, and they should be extremely powerful. That's the whole idea of a legendary weapon. But for these lists, we want to hit the more common items. And I was actually debating if I wanted to put the animated shield on there, because it is a very rare item. But it was one of those things that it's such a good item that I'm like, you know what, I have to talk about it. But other than that, that is my only nitpick with your list. It's other than that, it is great. I know the Mism armor is from Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica,
Yep.
and I've come across that um, while looking through things, and lore wise, I don't know how I would have that fit in to like a normal D&D game that wasn't set in the Ravnica setting. I don't know if that would be one of those things like you come across like a dealer in like the somewhere in the plains, like it finds find a traveling salesman that has a random set of armor that's from a plane that you've never heard of. But it would be something like that would
Mm-hmm.
be the way I would kind of do that. And that, I think, is going to take us into our main discussion point tonight.
Yes.
um, so our main thing that we wanted to talk about tonight was we were talking about paladins breaking their oath and becoming an oath breaker, clerics denouncing their god, or a warlock breaking their pact. And it's weird because these 3 classes are kind of the only ones in the D&D setting that can do that. We looked at druids a little bit, and we can't really, like, we haven't really thought of a way that a druid's going to like betray nature or betray their idea of nature. Because even if you're like a wildfire druid and you burn down a forest, your idea of burning down the forest might be, well, I have to recreate, I have to burn down the forest to create new life and create new opportunities for new trees and stuff like that. So it's one of those things that nature has that whole chaos circle of life thing going on, that it's really hard to truly betray it. But these 3 classes, it's one of those things. Every one of them can be betrayed. So we're starting with the paladin. Um, Clearly, there's the Oathbreakers, and it's it's one of those things that the Oathbreaker is. It's in the Dungeon Master's Guide, chapter 4, and it basically talks about uh, an oathbreaker is a paladin who breaks his or her sacred oath to pursue some dark ambition or serve an evil power. Whatever light burned in the paladin's heart has been extinguished, only darkness remains. And the idea is that if you become an oathbreaker for whatever reason, uh, this oathbreaker, you become this oathbreaker, and you are now devoted to something just evil or dark, or um, you feel like you've betrayed whatever your oath is. And I was trying to think of a good example of an oath, like a reason someone would become an oath breaker. And I was having trouble coming up with one off the top of my head. Do you have a good one, Thorn?
Um, actually, kind of. uh, this very much fits into kind of the character story that I'm putting together for our next campaign with the paladin that I'm running. Um, I didn't really give Oathbreaker a look, but the backstory for my paladin, which I'm not giving out here because it's got some cool stuff planned for it that I'm hoping to be able to use. But we could just say that
I don't want
if
the
a
whole
paladin
backstory,
was
especially if you're going to use it in a
stripped,
guard.
if a paladin is stripped of all hope and humanity from a foe and isn't able to see the light from his from the oath that he was bestowed, and loses so badly that it just breaks his faith in that oath, he would become an oathbreaker. And you know the campaign that we're running, and I might actually change my oath in the paladin that I'm working to run Oathbreaker, because it fits more of his backstory than the one that I want to run. The one I want to run would probably be a better min-max, but I like this better for the story.
Well, I've got two questions for you then.
Yep.
One, what oath would you originally take?
I believe I was taking let me see. No, not that one. Vengeance.
Vengeance. Okay. And how do you like? And this would be my question as a DM to a player that wants to do, make a caveat into this sort of thing. If you are a paladin of vengeance, how do you break your oath? What is your like? What would cause you to break your oath of vengeance?
Are you asking how would I go about, like, just completely separating myself from the oath of vengeance?
Well, no. All right. So the way I kind of see it is that if you are an oath of vengeance paladin, you have sworn this oath to seek out vengeance on something, like a dragon killed your parents or something, and you have sworn an oath of vengeance to kill that dragon. So if you do that, and then you find out that for whatever reason the like how would you not like always have some sort of grudge against that dragon? Like what would you have to do? Like would you have to suddenly become like a servant of the dragon? Would you have to be like
In
uh
in that scenario, I would say that yes, becoming either a servant or an ally to either that dragon specifically, or because in my thought, a Oath of Vengeance paladin would be a vengeance against all dragons. But if a dragon came along and was able to persuade the paladin that that specific dragon isn't as evil as the other ones may seem and that they could work together and he sided with them, that very well could be enough to break the oath.
Okay.
Even though he still might be out to kill the dragon that did him harm, but his oath of vengeance was against all dragons and now he's siding with a dragon. Um could go that way.
Well,
For
and
what I'm planning, it's more vampire based. I guess it would be siding with or becoming a vampire.
and this is me just looking at the different oaths as we're talking about this, but like oath of conquest, like the way I see someone breaking the oath of conquest is they try to like lead an attack on a fortress or something and are stymied, and just they suffer some sort of utter defeat, and to the point where they don't believe they can be a paladin of conquest anymore.
Yep.
The oath of devotion. It's one of those things of you're basically given that like impossible choice of like say your devotion is to serve a royal family, and the king's life is in danger, but so is the prince, sort of thing, and you can only save one, and you feel um kind of stuck in the middle there. The oath of glory, like I see what that would be something like you would have a you would be a famous paladin, but for whatever reason, like you're seen killing a little old woman, and that's looked upon as, oh, he's a murderer. There's no glory in that. There's just a cold blooded killer.
A
You know,
surrendering enemy.
um,
Like if you killed an enemy who was on his knees surrendering, that could very well break that oath of glory.
right, right, and those are the sort of things that I would think about as a DM and as a player is, and you'd have to talk with your DM about it because you're going to be like, well, how do we make this transition? What needs to happen in the story to facilitate this transition? And with that said, the next thing I want to talk about is a cleric, because where a paladin is more, they're defined to an oath. A paladin is defined, or a cleric is defined to a god, and they're very unique in that aspect of D&D because, like, if you're a fighter or barbarian, you don't have to worship any gods. You have an axe, you have a sword.
You worship
That's all
pain
you
and
need.
brutality.
Right. And the problem that is presented with a cleric is that if you somehow disagree with your god, or your god, you fall out of favor with your god for whatever reason of um not being in the same ideals, not being in the same thing, and I I was actually I talked to my DM in my other campaign whenever I was switching um my cleric from a war cleric to an order cleric, and it was one of those things that we had this whole conversation. I'm like, number one, I told her, I'm like, man, I'm not having fun as a war cleric. I'm not using my channel divinities. I'm not getting any of my benefits from that subclass because it was a little bit because of my stats. It was a little bit because of my play style, and it just wasn't working. But whenever I moved over and became an order cleric, everything clicked. it was all of a sudden it was like my spells were more potent. I became kind of a battlefield commander with the voice of authority. It was one of those things that I really liked the way it played, and I was still a support character, but at the same time, like I would get like I felt like I got a couple of like kills essentially where because I'm able to use a spell on an ally and they're able to get an extra attack with their reaction and it kills the monster, kills the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost count of how many times that happened because it was so prominent in that in our group first off, and because it just seemed to work. And it was more effective than me making a attack with a spell or something else. And I really love the way it does. But my also in that campaign, my god is Bane, which Bane is lawful evil. And I always played my paladin, or my cleric as lawful neutral. So I believe in the law, but I see the gray area of, like malicious compliance versus, following the law to the letter and people like gaining things from that. And it's one of those things that I could see a character where they have a god like Bane or Asmodeus or um, the Spider Queen, these evil gods, and you actually come across and be like, you find something wrong with your faith. You know what I mean? And in the process of finding something wrong with your faith, you become that sort of triggered. What am I doing? How do I fix this? And if you do something like that, I think it would allow you to change the subclass. It would one of the things I think would be interesting is you might lose your magical powers temporarily, because if you've betrayed your god that gives you magic, well, they can take it from you.
Yeah. And until you either
And
fall back in favor with them or gain the favor of a new god, you're kind of stuck.
yeah, exactly. Um, and I like that idea of, especially if you don't know who you're going to go to, of helplessness a little bit. And you're at that point of, well, I'm a spellcaster, but I don't have any spells. I don't have any abilities, and it makes for it. First off, it can freak players out, and I love doing that as a DM, where players are like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. What am I gonna do?
So
That's one of the best feelings in the world as a DM, when they're like, they're literally shaking in their boots because of the fact that they're scared. They're genuinely scared for their character, even if it's a higher level character. Like if you're a level 10 character and you suddenly lose all your magic, and you're going, what am I gonna do? Swing a mace? Swing a sword? And,
so
and they're gonna have like a +3 to hit.
In that instance, would you strip them of all magic, or would you only leave them with like the most basic level 1 spells?
I would strip them of all magic, and what my idea would be is, if you once you strip them of all magic, they can't cast cantrips, they can't cast first level spells, they can't cast anything. It creates a sense of urgency. And because it creates a sense of urgency, you're going to see more people be like, we need to fix this now. Versus, well, I can get by with level 1 spells, I'm not as efficient. No, you need to create a sense of urgency in doing it as a DM, because if you're a cleric that's like, well, I can only cast a few spells, I can't cast my big, home run hitters, versus I can't cast bless on my party.
Okay.
I can't cast level 1 cure wounds. like it suddenly changes the dynamic of what you're doing because the party's like, we don't have a healer. We don't have that person that's all going to just fix everything.
At that point, you basically
So
have, like, with saying it as nice as possible, you have dead weight. Because really, what are they
yeah,
going to do? Like, yes, they swing that sword. What are they going to do? Like, 3 damage a hit, and they get 1 hit a turn. There's no point.
and the other idea is with that dead weight is how does the rest of the party react to that? Is their idea, well, we can't carry dead weight, or we need to build them up to make them confident in themselves? Like there's a lot of ways parties can spin that because you'll get a party where they're like, you're dead weight, we're just going to drop you off to the next town, and maybe they might make a whole new character.
Yeah.
I mean, crazier things have happened, right? Or maybe they drop them off in a town, and this would be a great, like, if you knew somebody was going to be gone for a couple weeks during of in-game sessions, and they wanted to do this whole transition, drop the dead weight off in a town and have them make their own, like, find another god or find another deity that they're able to connect with away from the party, and then come back and be like, surprise, I've got my powers back, but they're a little different and they're a little new.
Yeah.
Which I love when players pull like surprises to the rest of the players. It always creates wonder, and it creates excitement because, oh, cool, you got this new stuff. Oh, tell us all about it. Um, and the last one that we were talking about was the Warlock. Warlock breaking their pact.
I think this is
And
the most
this one,
dangerous one.
it is the most dangerous one. But the other thing is that they always see that the dangerous ones are the ones on uh they're the ones that are always going to be, how do I put this, they're the ones that are scary. There's the ones that are all powerful, omniscient. Like they're these eldritch beings that are like outside of the gods that are granting you power, or they're genie granting you power, or they're a celestial granting you your power. And it's these super powerful beings that are like, man, what are we doing here? And it just makes you interested because of the fact that you're going, I like these ideas, I like these things, but the next thing you know, you have this evil entity saying, release me, release me out into the world so I can destroy it. And you start having these second guessing of, you're not sure what you want to do, you're not sure if you want to follow the other thing, and to play their hand, they start taking your powers. Maybe it's at first they take it for a day. Maybe they, during a battle, your powers stop working. They try to leverage. I feel like this is one of those things where there's more about an entity that's either trapped or trying to get into the world or try to find things that they want, whether it might be a sacred item, you know, some sort of gem, some sort of focus, whatever it is, whatever MacGuffin that the Eldritch Horror needs to enact its plan. And like I feel like players get caught in this a lot more than with the clerics abandoning their god, because this is one of those ones where it's like there's something evil like inherent with the warlock, like outside of maybe the celestial warlock, which is like it's its own entity. But for the most part, it's great because of the fact that all the the warlock powers are so they seem so temporary and so like minimalist that when they lose it, it's like holy cow, I lost it. Now what do I do? It's that dead weight feeling again. I know you haven't gotten super far into Critical Role, but Critical Role did a great um, transition with Ford because he didn't want to release Ukatoa on the world unsuspectingly, and it just becomes very interesting when you see that dynamic, and the rest of the party is sitting there saying, "Well, should we help him? Should we stop him?" It becomes a whole inter party conflict, which again is great for any game like this.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I've never even really looked into warlocks and just kind of flipping through these because the one time just going through the classes to see what I wanted to play, I came to warlocks and I'm like, man, this seems super tedious and difficult to keep up with, you know, a, a patron. Like, how far is the DM going to push me on this? So I've avoided a warlock for those exact reasons you talked about, where like I don't want to potentially lose all of my power because the DM says, "Oh, it's time to check in with your patron. What does he want to do? He wants you to do this." And it's something I'm not cool with.
Maybe he wants you to feed baby souls to him.
Yeah. Like, and I'm just like, do I really want to sneak out while everybody's asleep and steal children and feed them to, the fathomless or
Your
whatever?
eldritch horror, yeah.
Like, I don't know if I want to do that. That seems like, and I mean, I've only ever played with a couple DMs. I don't know how far any of them would have taken something like this, but every time I've played, I don't think I've ever played with a warlock, and I wonder if it's kind of like that people are timid when it comes to having to potentially make those choices in the game that they might not want to make or sacrifice their power.
And going back to Critical Role, I remember there being a quote from Marisha that whenever Ford was between a rock and a hard place with a choice, and you got Marisha sitting there with her arms crossed like this, going, "This is why I will never play a Warlock bubble,"
Yeah.
because, like you said, they have to make those hard choices, and because they're forced to make hard choices, and good TMs are able to back players into a corner a little bit and force you to make a hard choice of do you follow what your patron wants or do you betray what your patron wants? And if you can do that, it makes for great role play. It makes for a great game because that will be one of the most memorable moments of a campaign is when someone decides to betray a patron or betray a god or break their oath. That they'll remember that more than the silly jokes that they're ultimately going to make about whatever dumb name you've came up with for an NPC.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of being able to betray this ancient being, whether it's an archfey, a celestial, a fiend, a gene, uh, uh, one of the undead, the undying, like all those different things. Just look at, I'm like, wow, you're tempting fate with something that could crush you like a grape.
And while I think it's the most dangerous one to play, I also think it's the one that most likely, like, if your DM wanted to play it because warlocks seek this just immense power that they align themselves with very dangerous and otherworldly entities, it wouldn't take anything for a DM to be like, "Hey, this archfey wants to make a deal with you. I know that you already have a deal with a genie, but this archfey over here might want to, sweeten the pot a little bit. Like the switch for a warlock could either come or just straight be offered by a DM who wants to mess with the warlock in the party.
The other thing I was going to say is Warlock, I feel like, is one of the most like multi-class things in D&D, because you have the Paladin Warlock, you have the they call it the Sorlock, the Sorcerer Warlock. You have the I'm forgetting what the third one is, Bard Warlock, and all those, everything I just said has a big emphasis on charisma as their main spellcasting modifier, and everything there has stuff that works well together, whether it's sorcery points and like the short rest, being able to get 2 of your spells back, to the hex blade with the paladin is just retardedly good. There's just so many things that have these great abilities, and I'm sitting there going, man, I can see how all these multi-classes work together well and create a really powerful character. And you're able to make it, well, okay, if I'm a sorcerer and maybe I meet an archfey, and the archfey says, well, I can give you more power. And I go, really? What do I got to do for it? We can work out a deal, and you make some sort of deal with an archfey. All of a sudden, you have a level in warlock, and everyone else is going, well, wait, what are you doing, man? And it becomes a big caveat with the group again. And I'm going back to Ford, and spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen campaign 2. He had a moment where he betrays his or breaks his pact, and then commits himself to the Wild Mother, and gets his first level in Paladin. So it was this big huge transformation, and there was speculation during that section of recording of, well, is he going to become a paladin? Is he going to become a fighter? Is he going to be a a warlock with the Wild Mother? Like not only did the cast not really fully know, but the audience was stunned by, well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I think that was part of their whole thing, is they wanted that that intrigue and that mystery to build up and break ultimately. And that, I mean, any good DM they want to create that moment where there's this build up, and then it's, you have 2 choices. Are you going to take the red pill or the blue pill?
Mm-hmm.
And that's ultimately all they ever, you try to do. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about with these breakers, for lack of a better word?
No, I think as far as like breaking your pact or you're denouncing your faith or your oath, I think we covered pretty much all of it in ways that you as a player could go about doing those things.
Well, I'll ask one last question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you ultimately break a pact or break an oath, do you think there should be an avenue or a road where the player could atone for having break-in? Like, say, go back to your Paladin of Vengeance. and you're suddenly helping dragons, but then you betray that dragon and kill it. Does that, and you're go back to your, kill all dragons, you
I
know, does that does that atone for you breaking the pact or breaking the oath?
I think that if done properly, you could atone and go back. Well, see, like it. I mean, I guess it depends because like we set up the scenario in I believe it was Glory where you said Paladin kills an old lady, and I said kills a surrendering enemy. Um, how do you atone for slaughtering an old lady or killing a defenseless, surrendering enemy? Like, what would you have to do to be able to come back from that? In the scenario with the dragon, yes, you could kill the dragon that you're working for. I even think that if you could show that allying with this one specific dragon or type of dragon results in the death of many other dragons, you could even maintain your relationship.
Justify it.
Yeah, you could maintain your relationship with that dragon and get back into the vengeance because this dragon is on the same course against other dragons that you are. So I see you could do that. But some of those other scenarios that we set up, I don't think you could. I think that it would come down to how you broke your oath. And if it's something as bad as like slaughtering women and children, killing the elderly, just mercilessly killing a surrendering enemy, like when you have an oath that you're supposed to be of like pure heart and body and you do something like that, I don't think that you can atone for those things. So it would be a 50-50.
Attunement is going to be based upon what they did to break the
Yeah.
oath, the pact, or whatever in the first place.
Yep.
That seems fair. And the other thing is I would say if ultimately your path takes you down to killing a little old lady, and you're like, wow, I killed this little old lady. Well, I guess I can ultimately resurrect her. You know, animate uh animate dead. Because that's one of the features of the Oathbreaker is they're able to cast those sort of spells.
So you
So then,
you you kill the target, resurrect it, and then just go into a never-ending cycle. That's a little
I
dark.
guess
That would be a little rough. Like, I don't know. I see, and like priests changing gods, that's nothing more than showing your devotion to either the god that you lost faith in again or into another god. And kind of the same thing with Warlock. I think for the paladins, getting back could be more difficult than either the warlock or the priest or the cleric, because depending on what you did to lose that to become an oathbreaker, you might have a long, hard journey to get back to your previous oath.
read all around.
Yep. Do you
Well,
have
I
anything
think
else?
that's everything.
Yeah, looking at the
No, unfortunately, no encounters this week because we kind of were busy this weekend.
yeah,
Uh,
everybody. You had the Browns preseason game. I had house stuff. I'm trying to purchase a house, so I'm going through the good old house purchasing hell right now. So it was a very long weekend, stressful weekend.
absolutely.
But yeah, so no encounter this week. Let us know if you guys want to see us. Give us some parameters. Maybe we'll throw that up in the Discord. But I do think that last question that you asked me, I think that's going up on Twitter as a Twitter poll and question, because I do like that, where if a paladin breaks their oath and becomes an oath breaker, can they get back?
Can they atone?
Can they atone? And should a
How would
DM
they
allow
atone?
them? Yeah, how would they atone? Yeah, I think that's a good it's a good question for Twitter also. So we'll get that up
Yep.
probably tomorrow, because it is getting kind of late over here. So we're gonna close up shop. Uh, we are Twitch affiliates. So if you happen to have an Amazon Prime, that means that you've got Twitch Prime. You can hit that subscribe button, absolutely free, helps out the show. And the first thing we're doing is we're getting Mr. Kyle a camera. I'm calling it now. That's where that first bit of money's going. We're gonna get him set up so we can see his glorious face. But other than that, hit the follow button. We will shout you out on the show. iTunes reviews. Actually, no. iTunes is being kind of a pain, and for some reason they're not processing the show. I've got to look back into that because I keep getting like denieds, and we're not a bad podcast. Like, we don't talk about bad things and we don't say bad words, so we should
Big,
get on there.
man.
iTunes is, man, they're like the cream of the crop,
Stingy.
but they are a pain to deal with. But you can find the show over on Twitter at DragonHeads2. Email the show, dragonheads216@gmail.com. Email us those questions, comments, concerns, and ideas that you want us to talk about. Or you can join us over on our Discord over at discord.me/dragonheads. Follow the show right here on Twitch, twitch.tv/dragonheadspod. Go over to the YouTube, just search for us. Hit follow, because it takes absolutely ridiculous metrics to get a custom link. And right now, it's just youtube.com/blah, blah, blah, blah. I can't even tell you what it is, because it's just a bunch of letters and numbers in different uppercase and lowercase. So go over there, hit that follow button or the subscribe button over on YouTube, and help us get our actual Dragon Heads link over there. But
Don't confuse us for the there's a Norwegian like metal band
yeah,
called Dragon Heads randomly.
Yep.
Which, how would we ever know that until we search?
Yeah, we had no clue until after we made all of the things for the show, and it's like, oh hey, yeah, there's this. That's why everything kind of has numbers afterwards, because there's just random, like, nobody uses the Dragon Heads Twitch channel. It's a dead channel, but it's there, so I can't use it. But finishing this up, we record live Mondays, 9 p.m. ish Eastern time, and our intro music is a self-induced psychosis by my buddy Mr. Kyle Wynn. Thank you for stopping by, hanging out with us tonight. Everybody have a great evening. Go slay some dragons.
Good luck, adventurers.